Welcome to this presentation of Maryland ABLE Achieving a Better Life Experience. Today's presentation is an opportunity for us in partnership with Pathfinders for Autism. We really appreciate the ability to collaborate with Trish and Neil and Shelley at Pathfinders to provide this opportunity and give you a quick overview of our ABLE program and the program features. This particular presentation was not intended to be the full ABLE program explanation. So if you're coming to this particular webinar and you have not had any background or explanation about ABLE in the past, there may be things that you come away and you think, gee, I'm still a little confused, or I think I'd want some more information. So we understand that and recognize that what we're going to do here today is a fast overview of our program and the program features, because the point here is we want to give you an opportunity to have the benefit of our customer service representatives who are waiting and available to support you, as well as we're going to have online step-by-step walkthrough of the enrollment process. So if you want to enroll today, we will have a customer service representative with those enrollment screens on the computer on this webinar to take you through that process during this webinar today. So I also want to thank our partners, our program manager, Someday and Daniel, who is going to take over the second part of this webinar and take you through that enrollment process. And I want to thank Tom, who leads our customer service team and representatives at Someday, which is our program manager, because they have been prepared to be ready to support you with any questions that you might have either during this presentation or at the end of this presentation as you enroll in the Maryland ABLE program. I also want to thank Kelly, who works as part of the Maryland ABLE team, because she's going to be manning the question and answer portion of this program, as I, Betty Ann, and the director of Maryland ABLE and are providing the audio portion of this program. After we go through the quick overview of the program, we're going to have an opportunity for some quick question and answer. But throughout the program, as I'm speaking, if you have questions, again, use the question and answer box of personal nature, your personal situation. Please send privately, and then we will respond to that again privately. Otherwise, we'll to use that and incorporate that in the audio portion so that everyone can benefit from the answer. Let's get started. So what is ABLE and what is the ABLE program? You know, ABLE was opened as a program and it was begun back in 2015. And it was a way for people with disabilities and their families to have an opportunity to save money and not risk losing physical benefits. Folks who currently receive Social Security benefits, particularly SSI benefits, are aware of that $2,000 asset cap that they've constantly struggled with, because once they reach that $2,000 asset cap, they recognize that benefits begin to reduce. And if someone has been receiving SSI benefits, they've automatically been receiving Medicaid benefits. And when they lose their SSI benefits, they automatically lose Medicaid benefits, which is pretty catastrophic for a person with a disability. And so ABLE was enacted back in 2017 from the federal perspective, and it didn't come with federal funds, but it came with the opportunity for states to open programs. The first state program to open was Ohio. It took Maryland a couple of years, and we launched our program. I'm sorry, it opened in 2015. We launched our program in 2017. In order to be eligible for an ABLE account, you have to have developed the disability prior to age 26. That doesn't mean you have to be younger than 26 to open an account, but rather there has to be evidence that you had a disability prior to age 26. For those of you on the call who are primarily either folks who have autism or who are family members of people who have autism, that wouldn't be an issue for you, because as we know, the diagnosis of autism would have occurred prior to age 26. And the second part of this is that it meets the definition of the Social Security definition of disability. So it means that the type of disability that you have is one of those that Social Security says is a qualified disability. People who are currently getting SSI benefits or SSDI benefits would qualify by the fact that they're getting those benefits. But I don't want you to believe that you have to be getting those benefits to qualify, because we're very well aware that oftentimes children, particularly under the age of 18, may qualify for those benefits and not currently be receiving those benefits because the family income is too high to qualify them for benefits. But knowing that once the child reaches the age of 18 and benefits are determined by the child's income, or then the young adult's income, the child would qualify for those benefits. So let me be clear, in all of that mud that I just spewed forth, the fact is, if you're receiving SSI benefits, you automatically qualify for an ABLE account if the disability was evident before the 26th birthday. If you are not receiving SSI currently, but have a qualifying disability based on Social Security, and your disability occurred prior to your 26th birthday, you are eligible for an ABLE account. Now, we have account holders that are less than a year old, and we have account holders that are in their 90s. So as I said, you can open an ABLE account at any age as long as you meet those two qualifications of eligibility. A really important thing about ABLE accounts that's very different from our sister kinds of accounts, those college savings accounts, are that the account holder in ABLE is always the person with the disability, and they are always the beneficiary. Now, we recognize, too, that sometimes that person may need someone to assist them with their account, and we have a provision called the Authorized Legal Representative. You'll hear us call that the ALR for short. You know us, we love our acronyms in this field. And that ALR can be used to help the person to manage their funds. In the ABLE world, the Authorized Legal Representative is the parent of a child who is under the age of 18, is in a child or a young adult 18 and older. It then must be either someone who is the full guardian of the child or the adult, at least the guardian of property, which includes finances, or could be the power of attorney over the ABLE account. So if your family member is 18 or older, in order to open an ABLE account, there must be at least power of attorney over the ABLE account, which only requires a notary, or guardianship of person and property, or at least guardianship of property. In some states, instead of guardianship of property, it's called conservatorship or conservator. So that is something else that would provide the legal requirements to be considered an ALR or authorized legal representative on an account. As I said, ABLE was passed as federal legislation, and federal legislation has certain provisions that all ABLE programs must abide by. And on this slide, you're going to see several features that are a part of every single ABLE program. ABLE has a limit in terms of how much money that can be contributed each year, and that's $15,000. That $15,000 is the same amount of money that the IRS limits gift contributions or gifts to people without being taxed on that money. If that changes in the tax code, then that will change for ABLE. And we say that because in the short lifetime of ABLE programs, that has changed. When ABLE programs first opened, it was $14,000, so we've already got an increase to $15,000. The other thing that is consistent across all ABLE programs is that the amount of money that you can put into an ABLE account without impacting an SSI benefit, cash benefit, goes from $2,000 without an ABLE account all the way to $100,000. So imagine if you're someone who's been trying to manage $2,000 in assets to keep from impacting your SSI benefit, you now have the opportunity to save up to $100,000 before SSI is impacted. And there's a real difference in the way that this impact is felt for the person with a disability, because outside of ABLE, when you exceed that $2,000 asset limit, you slowly begin to lose your benefit. And when your benefit is gone, you go into a state of suspension. And when your SSI is suspended, it can only stay in that status for up to 12 months before you become disenrolled in the SSI program, and you would have to reapply, which any of you who've had to go through that application process know is quite a challenging process. But most importantly, when you lose your SSI benefits, you also lose your Medicaid, which means if you're in a waiver program or are dependent on your Medicaid as your health insurance, that can be very catastrophic for the person. When you have an ABLE account and you reach that $100,000 balance, you still have the opportunity to have that $2,000 outside of ABLE and the $100,000, and then you go into a state of automatic suspension of your SSI benefit, but that suspension can be indefinite. You are never disenrolled and needing to re-enroll, and if your balance goes below $100,000, your then benefits restart, and most importantly, you will never lose your Medicaid due to a suspension because of a $100,000 balance in your ABLE account. So really important to note is a suspension or an impact to your SSI because of the $100,000 balance in ABLE will never create a loss of a Medicaid benefit. The things in an ABLE account have the ability to be used for a number of different things. We call those things qualified disability expenses, and on the next slide, I'll go into more definition of what those QDEs or qualified disability expenses are. A benefit that is a federal benefit is that when money is in the ABLE account, the earnings on that money is tax-free, and when the money is spent, it is also tax-free as long as the money is spent on things that are considered qualified disability expenses. A new benefit that came to our program 2 years ago was that people who had started college savings programs for their children and then figured that their children were not going to be able to use that money in the way that college savings accounts are designed, because there's some pretty strict rules about how that money has to be spent, would be able to roll that money from a college savings program over into an ABLE account without tax penalties. Now, we know that college savings accounts don't have limits on how much you can contribute each year, and there aren't the same kind of limits on the money that gets put into those accounts. So when you roll that money over from a college savings account, it still is subjected to that $15,000 annual contribution limit. If you've already made contributions during the course of the year, whatever you roll over plus your rollover cannot exceed that $15,000 annual contribution. But you can do it over the course of several years until you've cleared out that 529 college savings account. It's really a nice benefit for folks who have started college savings programs and realize they're not going to be using them the way that they had intended to be using them initially, because now they'll have many more ways that the money can be spent. Another benefit that came in 2017 to ABLE programs is that people who are working and have ABLE accounts and who are not contributing to a retirement program and whose employers are not contributing to an employment program may be able to contribute an amount equal to their gross income for the current year up to this year, $12,490, above and beyond that $15,000 in contributions for the year. So it's a really nice benefit for folks who are working to be able to put some of those wages into savings. Now, please don't misunderstand me, and remember that wages still count as income, and ABLE is not an income protection, but rather an asset protection. So it allows you to save and keep that money, but it doesn't protect you in terms of the income impacts on your benefits. The other thing that is a national feature is enrollment and account management for all ABLE programs can be done online. Maryland ABLE has some specific things that it allows, and that is that we have a cash option, which is like a savings account that is FDIC insured, and we have 3 investment options, a conservative, moderate, and aggressive option. And when you go through the enrollment process, you'll see some explanations of what that conservative, moderate, and aggressive package look like. Those descriptors really talk about how much of those packages are made up of stocks and bonds and mutual funds. So it talks about the amount of risk that's involved in each of those investments. This slide tells you a little bit about the categories that are listed in the law as qualified disability expenses. And the law talks about qualified disability expenses as being things that support the person with disability in their health independence and their quality of life. These categories give us a little bit more clarity on the types of things that we can use the money for. So when you look at this list, you can see that there are oftentimes co-pays for doctor's visits or even medications, even with Medicaid these days, and they can be used for that. But think about the person who may have a gym membership to help with their health and wellness or is a preventative measure. That is something that might be used, the money could be used for. People who are seeking education and maybe alternative education sources, maybe alternative education programs, or need additional supports in employment and training support. Transportation, it could be for bus passes, it could be for train passes, it could be for Uber and Lyft. Basic living expenses, cable, cell phones, food, things like that. Assistive technology, many people may have communication supports. People may have different types of supports, electronic supports and adaptive equipment throughout their home, their vehicles, those types of things. It can be used for that. Financial management, if you're using a financial planner that is assisting you with planning for your future, you can use your money in your ABLE account to make those kinds of payments. If you're using a lawyer to assist you maybe with getting guardianship because that's something that you feel is that is needed in the future, or you're setting up a trust for the future with your family members, that can be used for those legal fees. I once was doing a presentation for a group of advocates, and a gentleman said to me that DDA only provided so much oversight, or I should say support, from the nursing services that he needed, and he was on vacation and wanted to stay longer, and could he pay for additional support from the nurse that was with him from his ABLE account? And the answer to that is yes. That is something that it can be used for. In the past, a lot of times people used their excess or overages in their SSI monies to prepay burial funds just to keep from going over their $2,000 asset limits. But ABLE monies can be spent after the person has passed away to pay for things like funeral and burial expenses. And if there are pre-assigned monies or expenses from the ABLE account and the person passes away, those monies can still be allocated, unlike a trust where the money would be shut down as soon as the person passes. And I want to say that we believe that trusts can work in partnership with ABLE accounts, because we feel that we know that ABLE accounts can only handle $15,000 a year, plus be able to work additional if a person qualifies. And sometimes people do get things like money that people, large sums of money from settlements or insurance policies, and so they need to have a trust set up. The ABLE account can provide to someone maybe easier access, and we have people who have both. And so they might use their trust for the larger amounts of money and transfer money into the ABLE account for easier access. These are some general numbers for you to think about as you think about the Maryland ABLE account. It takes $25 as your initial deposit to open the account. That's not a fee, but rather the initial deposit. You can open the account with as much money as you want, up to $15,000, but it takes at least $25 to open the account. And then any subsequent deposit has to be at least $10. There is a $35 annual account maintenance fee, and then additional asset-based fees based on which investment option that you select. Those $35 annual account maintenance fees are prorated, meaning you only pay for the amount once you join. If you were to join today, it would not be a full $35 because you've joined mid-year. And those are assessed quarterly at the end of each quarter and are deducted directly from the account. We do have a prepaid card option, which we would be able to give you a lot more information for if you would contact us directly. And that is accepted everywhere. And there is a $1.25 monthly fee per card. If you select that option, it doesn't matter how much you use it, how often you use it, it's just a straight $1.25 a month fee. Don't forget about that $15,000 annual contribution limit. The $100,000 can be contributed before SSI benefits are impacted. And here's a new number for you. Over the lifetime of the account can accept contributions till the balance reaches $500,000. So once you reach $500,000 in your account, we're unable to accept any more contributions. You can still earn interest and dividends on that account, but once it reaches $500,000, we couldn't accept additional contributions until the balance would go below $500,000. That number is tied to the contribution limit for Maryland's 5-2 plan. So if, in fact, that number raises in the future, goes higher, it will go higher for our ABLE account. So that number is different from state to state. And then a unique feature for Maryland and a few other states, I believe there's 11 other states that have this, there is an income deduction per contributor per ABLE account if you contribute to an ABLE account. So for each person who makes a contribution to a Maryland ABLE account and pays Maryland taxes, you can deduct up to $2,500 of your contribution annually from your income before taxes. So that is a nice benefit that our legislature has given us for an ABLE account. So if you are interested in opening a Maryland ABLE account today, we are going to have our customer service representative, Daniel, help us walk through that process. So please be sure to gather together the Social Security number for the beneficiary, the person with the disability, if that's you or your family member. And if you're going to be the authorized legal representative, then you need to also have your number handy. Make sure that you also have paperwork that shows you're the authorized legal representative if that's the role you're going to serve, because that will need to be uploaded. Now that can be uploaded later. That doesn't have to be done today as you enroll, but that will be needed. And the bank account that you will be linking that to. It could be a savings account or a checking account, but you'll need that bank account number and that routing number. So we're going to take a few minutes to see, are there any questions that people have? I'm not seeing any. If you want to send private messages, you check private.
Betty Ann, this is Kelly.
Yeah.
We have a question here that says, can you review the requirements listed in application section 5 diagnosis information? And can we download slides?
Okay, we will be happy to send you the slides, and we will go through that diagnosis information as we go through the actual application. If you will be willing to hang on as we go through that application. Will that work for you?
He says yes.
Okay.
We have an extra question here. It says you specifically mentioned SSI. What if the person receives SSDI?
Uh-huh. SSDI is also something that would help you to qualify for this program. It just doesn't have the exact same limitations. It doesn't have the same $2,000 asset limitation. I just saw one that came up. What is an example of something that an ABLE account cannot pay for? One of the things that I would say to you is it can't buy gifts for other people because the things that it pays for should be for the person. It doesn't mean that other people might not benefit for what the money is used for, but it can't be a direct presence for someone else. So as an example, I might buy my groceries for this with my money. And with those groceries, I might make dinner for my significant other. So that is okay. But I can't go out and buy my significant other a nice piece of jewelry. I can't buy presents directly just for someone else. And the other thing that is not allowed is gambling. You can't use it at the casinos. Kelly, were there other questions?
Yes, some great questions coming in here. First, work income is included. So does this take the amount above the $15,000 limit?
I'm not sure that I'm understanding that question. Can you repeat that?
So it says here, work income is included. So does this take the amount above the $15,000 limit? The person doesn't specify additional information, so probably gets.
So let me go back and explain that. So the $15,000 contribution limit can come from any source. You can contribute to the ABLE account to make up that initial $15,000. I say initial, that first $15,000. So the able to work contribution is if someone is working, they can contribute additional money up to their gross income, total gross income for that year, not to exceed $12,490 this year. And again, the details of that, the complexity of that is that number changes every year. We can't be simple. It's government. It changes based on the federal poverty level wage for a single person income for the previous year. So each year you have to check back with us. So that's how that income comes in. So that money can only be the person, the account holder's money. It doesn't have to be their income, but it has to be their personal money. Could be their work money. It could be their personal money that was given to them as gifts. But the able to work contributions, and you'll see as Daniel goes through, every time a contribution is made, you'll make a selection. Is this able to work or is this a standard contribution? Okay. Go ahead, Kel.
Okay, Betty Ann, we got a couple coming in about that linked bank account that you talked about. So I'm going to give you both questions at once because I think they're very related. Okay, should a person use their SSI bank account to link to the ABLE account? And also, does the bank account have to have the person's or the account holder's name on the account that you link to your ABLE account?
It's your choice which account you link it to. It does not have to have the bank, it does not have to have the ABLE account holder's name on it. You decide which account it is, and it does not have to be the account that the SSI money is deposited into. Social Security just put out on April 16th of this year a new program operations manual that said RET payees could direct that Social Security money could be direct deposited into ABLE accounts if you chose to do that. Many people are not choosing to do that. They choose to still keep it as a separate account, and that's fine. So you could link that account if that's the account you wanted to. It is a choice that each individual person gets to make.
Okay, great. Can you use SSI or SSDI funds to start an ABLE account?
Yes, you can. Just as you can use any money that are left over at the end of the month from the SSI account to put into an ABLE account. That has been cleared in the new Programs Operations Manual from SSI. It very clearly says that ABLE is considered a valid account for Social Security funds.
Okay, great. A wonderful question about the tax deduction. Could you please repeat that information about the tax and income tax deductions here in Maryland?
Okay, good question. So if you contribute money, and let me just make this a very real example. If I were to win the Powerball tomorrow, I think it's Powerball, maybe it's the other one that goes off tomorrow, but if I were to win this and I were to get the names of every one of you on the call who opened an account today and determined that I was going to donate $2,500 to each of your accounts, I would have the opportunity to deduct $2,500 times the 31 people on this call off of my income before taxes next year, because it's $2,500 per contributor per ABLE account. So if you're the parent of more than one child with a disability and you contribute $2,500 next year or this year for each child, then you can deduct $2,500 for each child off of your taxes for next year. And if you're married filing jointly and you each contribute $2,500, that's $5,000 per child that you can deduct off of your income before taxes. So what this deduction does is it lowers your income before taxes, so it lowers your tax base.
Great, Betty. And another question, what documentation do you need to be the authorized legal representative?
If the status that gives you the authority to be that decision maker is guardianship, then you're going to need to upload those guardianship papers. If the status is power of attorney, then you're going to upload those power of attorney papers. Now, we provide the power of attorney form, if you don't have one, that is specifically power of attorney for Maryland ABLE on our website. So you can download that. And remember, power of attorney in Maryland only requires a notary and 2 witnesses to sign. It does not require any court hearing or anything like that in Maryland. So it's a very simple process here in Maryland. If, as I said today, if you do not have those papers, that is something you can upload after you go through the enrollment process.
Okay, great. Another one about the qualified disability expenses. The person wants to know, what about spending money on fun things? My son likes to buy games and cards and go to the movies.
And so when it comes to determining what qualified disability expenses are, that is something that is very personal for each child. And remember when I said that this is an IRS, this is a program that's part of IRS. It's part of the tax code. We're actually 529A in tax code. And so when it comes to making a decision as to whether or not something is a qualified disability expense, you need to know for you and your family member, is this something that supports them in health independence and quality of life? And that's not a decision that we can make. And so if you can make the decision and you can support that it is something that supports them in their quality of life, the person you're going to have to answer to is going to be the IRS tax auditor, should you be selected for a tax audit. And so that's the answer. That I know that sounds like I'm copping out on my answer, but that is the answer to that question. Make sure that you save your receipts just as you do for any tax program, anything that is tax related. And if you use the prepaid card that we have, it's just like any credit card. There is an online statement and receipting, and there is an opportunity to go online and insert additional notes as to what it was for. So if you think that those things enhance the quality of life for your family member, then that might be your answer.
Okay, thanks, Betty Ann. A couple more questions. The first one is, does the ABLE account transfer to another state if the participant moves?
The participant can move their account to another state. You can, as long as that state accepts, if they're moving to another state. But we are open for national enrollment. So if you chose, you could leave your account in Maryland and live in another state. So that's something that I didn't say in the beginning, and that is some states accept enrollment from out-of-state residents, and some states only accept enrollment from in-state residents. So if you were to move, you might want to look at your new state's program and determine, is this state's program better for you in terms of cost and investment options, or did you want to keep it in Maryland because you liked Maryland's program better? That's a personal decision that you could make. Are there any more questions, Kelly? We really want to move on to the registration portion.
Looks like we have just one more question, and that is, once you establish the account and you link a linked bank account, are you able to change that bank account after you set it up?
Absolutely. We have forms that you could send in to change that at any time.
Thanks, Betty Ann.
Okay, I'm now going to change my screen and we're going to turn this over to Daniel at Someday. Okay, Daniel, take it away.
Thank you, Betty Ann. Thank you for having me. Getting ready with the MarylandABLE.org website here.
As participants, if you will now change and go on your computer, log on to www.marylandable.org. If you would like to enroll, you can follow along with Daniel.
All right, so as you can all see, we are on the MarylandABLE.org website. Before you click on open account or open an account, it's important you make sure you are on the Maryland.org website. Those distinctive colors, blue and red. So you can see we have open account at the top right-hand corner. We're going to start from there.
I'm going to interrupt Daniel just really quickly because
Sure.
This is something we say enough. If you just Googled Maryland ABLE, you will end up on the ABLE Now website. That is not Maryland ABLE. That is the Virginia ABLE program. So please make sure if you want to join Maryland ABLE that you see Maryland ABLE on the screen. If you just Google Maryland ABLE, ABLE Now is what will come up. You must see Maryland ABLE on the screen. If it doesn't look like this, you are not on our website. Thank you, Daniel. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. So when you click open an account, the next page would be information on the plan management company, Someday. As soon as you get to that page, you want to hit Let's Go, and it takes you to the enrollment site, the Someday platform. The enrollment process itself is 6 steps, only take you about 10 minutes. So let's start with your preferred email. Mine, it will be my Gmail. And you want to check the boxes, I've read and accept the terms of the plan disclosure booklet and participation agreement. And I always recommend you download the soft copies of the plan disclosure booklet. as well as the participation agreement. So you can read after you've enrolled. Same thing for the site, terms and use, and online privacy. And hit get started. Are you the beneficiary? No. First information required would be the beneficiary's information. So in this case, I'm going to put beneficiary's name, John Doe, social security number, date of birth, gender identification, residential address, 123 Main Street, Silver Spring, Maryland. As soon as you hit the drop-down list and hit M, it pops up with Maryland ABLE and all other states starting with M. A zip code, and we're off to second step. Now tell us about yourself, the authorized legal representative, as Betty Ann has mentioned, the ALR. So in this case, I'll put my name, date of birth, phone number, gender, and here's to confirm the beneficiary lives, the authorized legal representative lives in the same address with the beneficiary. So I'm just gonna hit, I live with John Doe. And employment status, I'm employed. What kind of work do I do? Accountant. And off to the next step. It's loading. Eligibility information. Now here you have to select one of the options. Which options apply to the beneficiary? You have to certify on the penalties of perjury. The beneficiary is either entitled to an occurring year to SSI, or the second option, SSDI. Select the first one. And diagnosis code. There are a total of 7 diagnosis codes, ranging from developmental disorder to other. I'm going to go with the first option. Is the disability permanent? Yes. Now, as the authorized legal representative, I want to clarify my relationship with the beneficiary, in this case, which would be parent, and check the 3 options. I certify on the penalties of perjury that both disability or blindness was developed before the age of 26. And the beneficiary has no other ABLE account. You're only allowed to have one ABLE account, as you already know. And I expect the disability or blindness to last the rest of his life. Check that option as well. And we're up to the 4th step. Let the page load. So this is a verification process, and it's important you take your time to answer all the questions. Most of the questions that pop up are generated from a public database. So we're going to hit next. I'm going to answer all my questions, which in this case are specific to the authorized legal representative. If the beneficiary was opening the account, then the questions would be specific to him. above.
And this particular thing is to make sure that you are who you say you are, that you're not faking your identity.
Exactly. And for the communication preferences, so there are three options. You can choose to receive quarterly statements by email as well as your tax forms. There's a second option to receive quarterly statements by email but have your tax forms sent by mail. And there is a third option to receive quarterly statements and tax forms by mail as well. I'm going to go for the first option. Email me quarterly statements and tax forms.
If you choose the third option, there is a $10 annual fee to have everything done by mail.
That's correct, which is billed quarterly. Yes, send me updates. You always want to select that option so you're aware of any changes to Maryland ABLE savings plan. That address and hit next. So password recommendations, we always advise you use 8 characters, capital letter, and at least 1 digit. I'm going to put in my password. Strong and repeat. And next. So this is the review portion. You want to make sure you go over all the information you've provided to make sure it's accurate. Beneficiary's name, John Doe, and about the authorized legal representative, eligibility information, communication preferences, email, and password. And as you can see, there are pencil options in each box. So wherever you see there is a mistake that has been made, you can always edit that information. Scroll down and click Create My Account. Wait for the page to load. We have our piggy bank loading up. Congratulations on creating your account. Now it's time to verify your email. So after the registration process, a verification email is always sent to the email address. You go to your inbox, your Gmail, your Yahoo. It normally takes between 10 seconds to a minute to receive that verification email. I'm waiting for my email here. There we go. And while expecting the email, you would normally see come from no reply at someday.com, and it should say, please confirm your email address. And there is a link that says verify me or verify email. As soon as you click on the verify email, be it on another device, maybe your phone, your other laptop, you could just come back to the same page and hit click to refresh the page. Your email is verified. Let's finish setting up this account. Set up account. Now you do have the option to set a goal. It could be up to the standard contribution limits if you would like. I'm going to skip that option. And I'm going to select to add a bank account. Name on the bank would be mine. type of account is it? It's a check-in.
So Daniel, if we go back a step with the choose connection method, sign into your bank account gives you a drop-down menu and lets you kind of sign into your online banking. Is that correct?
That's correct. So you do have the option to use the plate system, which automatically connects you to your bank by putting in your bank login as well as your bank password.
Right. So, okay. Or you can do as Daniel is doing manually.
Yes. I prefer the manual option because it gives me time to go over the account number and the routing numbers and make sure everything is accurate.
Yeah.
So routing number, put in my routing number. Account number. And you can also have a nickname for the bank. In this case, I'll put the son's name. And next. With my bank account linked, I have the option to select from the investment options, cash. We have other investment options, conservative, moderate, and growth. And you do have the option to make a combination of all three options if you would like. So here, I'm going to go with the cash option. Hit next. Betty Ann mentioned there's at least $25 minimum contribution amount. I'm going to put in 2,500 to take advantage of that tax break for the state of Maryland. And you also do have the option to put monthly contributions or recurring contributions. So on a specific day of a month, a certain amount will be deducted from a specified bank account into the Maryland ABLE account. And you also do have the option to change that. Okay. I'm going to skip the recurring option. Today we're making a contribution of 2,500. Hit review. You're almost done. On the last page to review everything, you still have the option to edit if you'd like to add a yearly goal. You can review the banking instructions again. Investment allocation, I only selected the cash option. Again, you can mix the conservative, moderate, and growth and have some funds in the cash option as well. But it's always advisable to go over all the options and see which of those would suit your investment strategy levels best. And we can hear.
I'm sorry,
I'm
Daniel,
sorry,
you have the ability to change your investment selection up to 2 times per calendar year. So if you select cash, that you want it all in cash now, or you select a mixture of cash and conservative now and you want to change that, you have the ability to change that again up to 2 times per calendar year.
That's correct. All right. So we're going to go with a finish account setup. And wait for our page to load. And there we have it. Your account has been created, and you could take a survey and actually view your account. So this is what your account would look like after the setup is complete. You have your overview option, activity, with summary, transactions, statements, and tax forms. So when you select communication preferences for email, you receive an email notification when your statements and tax forms are available, and you would go to statements or tax forms to download any of those documents. And you would go to investment options to change your investment strategies. If you needed to make a contribution online, you just go to transfers. You have transfers, contributions. If you needed to make a withdrawal, you have the withdrawals option as well. And to make changes to recurring contributions, you would go under manage. Let's take a look at what those tabs look like. On the contribution, you have the option to select your bank and instructions. And we have John's account. I can select another one-time contribution and proceed with an additional contribution amount. And we have the settings tab, which provides you with options to edit banking instructions. I know there was a question that came up with changing banking instructions after they've been added. You do have the option to add a new bank, delete existing bank, add a new one, and delivery options as well. So there we have it. Betty Ann, on your end, any questions regarding the enrollment process?
Daniel, if you have a minute, I'd just like to share one or two of the questions that came in during this process. Back in the beginning, when you have to check whether someone receives SSI or SSDI, if a person receives SSI at only certain times, they were wondering if they should check it at all. Just, if they're not receiving it all at all times, they may just get it for certain months of the year. Should they check it or not check it, was the question for that.
Yes,
they
they
should.
need to,
I'm
because
sorry,
that's
go
what
ahead,
they're,
Betty Ann.
I'm sorry, Daniel. They definitely need to check that because that's their eligibility. That's what they're eligible for. It's not whether or not they're receiving it. That is their eligibility. So the question is about their eligibility status, and that is what their eligibility is for. Even though they may not technically be receiving the funds, that is what their eligibility is for, qualified for this account.
Okay, thank you. And someone has a question, is if they need additional help, is there someone that they can call for additional help?
Yes. So we do have customer service representatives available at the 855-563-2253 number. Currently, there are temporary hours of 9 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's also a chat feature. Representatives are always available to assist with any questions regarding the enrollment process in the Maryland ABLE Savings Plan.
Okay. Another question is, why does the total balance on my screen say 0? Why does the total balance say 0 when you just put in 2,500?
So when you initiate the contribution, it's an electronic process. So it takes between 2 to 7 business days for the funds or the transaction to fully go through and for the funds to be fully available in the account. So in the space of 2 to 7 business days, you will receive an email confirmation, as well as when you log into your account, you will see the balance for the exact amount you contributed into the account.
All right.
If you note, under total balance, it says one pending transaction.
Correct.
Okay.
View activity. And we have our pending transaction right there. Kelly, any other questions on your end?
Yes, someone wants to know if they prefer to just print out these forms or download them off of the website. Are they able to complete them, paperwork, and send them in? Is that an option?
Yes, so we do have the paper enrollment process as well. When you go to the marylandable.org website, at the bottom of the website, we have the resources option. The fourth option there is forms. One of the forms would be the enrollment form, which you can fill out and either mail to us. Mailing addresses are provided on the enrollment form. as well as you can either fax it to us. We do have fax numbers. You can call in and we can provide that for you as well.
All right, and one more. If the ALR and the account holder have different addresses, which address should go on to the account on this when you're signing up?
Considering the ALR would be assisting the beneficiary manage an account, it's always preferable you put the ALR's address. That way they receive statements, tax forms, and any additional documentation that would be required to help them better manage the account.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I do have one question here that looks like it would be more geared towards Betty Ann. If you want to take that, it's about the difference between having a trust and an ABLE account. And specifically, can you advise the pros and cons of having a trust versus an ABLE account?
Each of them has specific roles to play. And so it is about which is the intent and what is the purpose. So a trust can accept unlimited amounts of money, and it is in the name of the trustee. It is not owned by the person. So what you're looking for is the ABLE account is owned by the person and can be used for things that the trust can't be used for. For instance, you can use the trust for you cannot use the trust for specific things like food and clothing and shelter like you can an ABLE account, things that are basic needs. So an ABLE account can be used to pay for rent and mortgage and things of that nature. People oftentimes use an ABLE account because it is so easily accessible, and what they do is they transfer money from a trust to an ABLE account. Sometimes people don't have large amounts of money, and therefore an ABLE account is a better vehicle for them. But when they do have large amounts of money or are looking for a vehicle whereby parents are trying to provide for their children after they are passed, a trust is something they can set up for the future for their children. It's a vehicle that will allow them to set up for their insurance to take on a large sum of money for their children. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both. You know, the ABLE account can only take $15,000 a year. That's a distinct disadvantage to the ABLE program. So it's what is going to meet the needs of the family best for a trust. So it's really a personal family decision as to how this works. However, we're seeing more and more people who do have a larger sum of money who use both tools to work with their family member around how to protect assets. I hope that has answered the question. Did you see other questions, Kelly? I'm seeing a few come through on chat as well. One of them was, are the identity questions based on Maryland tax information, or do they assess credit bureau? It's actually just based on your internet presence. It's kind of scary. The internet knows about us. So it's neither the tax information or the credit bureau information. Is the prepaid card the only way to make payments? Actually, you can transfer the money back into your bank account, and if that's a checking account, you can make payments that way. And if you want to have a manual check written from your account, you can do that. There is a $250 charge for a manual check. And if you use the prepaid card, you can use that to make payments as well. There's another question about someone who has power of attorney for a person over the age of 18, and you would use that as your application to be an ALR, yes.
Betty Ann, we have another question. If an out-of-state grandparent wants to set up an out-of-state ABLE account so they get a tax benefit, are you limited to $15,000 contribution across all ABLE accounts per year for any single beneficiary?
There is a difference between ABLE and 529 accounts, college savings accounts, in that you can only ever have one ABLE account at a time. You can't have multiple ABLE accounts like you can have multiple college savings accounts. So that is a distinct difference in this program. So the answer would be no, you can't, the grandparents couldn't set up an account and then you have an account as well. Remember that the program is such that the beneficiary is always, and the owner of the account is always the person with the disability. So the grandparents couldn't be the ALR and the parent be the ALR for the program. It's only one account at a time. The only exception to that is when you're rolling over. There's a short period of time when you have two accounts, but only one is a valid account as you're rolling over from one state to the next. And you have to do that within 60 days.
Okay, and I also just like to point out when we had the question about the special needs trust versus ABLE account, Pathfinders has put on the question and answer section that they have a handout that they can share with you. That's a nice comparison between the two, tips for parents. So you might want to follow up with them about that.
Please, if you have additional questions, write to us at questions@marylandable.org or call our customer service. They are very knowledgeable and very willing to help. We so appreciate those of you who've signed on. We are here for you as well as our customer service folks from Sunday, and we hope that you will consider opening an ABLE account with Maryland ABLE. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Stay healthy and stay safe. Goodbye. Daniel, if you'll transfer that back to me, I'll stop the recording.
Yes.